Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Kristen, this is my booktube, and in today's video we are going to be talking about my July TBR. So as per usual, this list is not exhaustive, it is not every single book that I want to read in the month of July, but these are a collection of titles that I would like to get to in July, things that I'm thinking about reading, things that are at the top of my TBR list, that kind of thing. And for July, I do have a list of 5 titles / series that I would like to read. And I just wanted to share that with you all now that we are, crazy enough, coming to the end of June. So we are about halfway through the year already. It's insane to me. And overall, I think that this list does have a good mix of different genres, different plots, and things like that. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into talking about the books that I have on my TBR for the month of July. So for a mini reading update, I guess, I am still playing catch up with my reading challenge for the year. June is a very busy time for me work-wise, like my 9-to-5 job. Believe it or not, this is not my full-time job. I do have a regular desk job that I have to make my priority if I would like to continue receiving a paycheck, and June is a very busy month for us. So I have not been reading as much as I would like to. I've been very busy with work, and the stress from that has kind of spilled over into other aspects of my life, but with June coming to a close, I am confident that I will be able to make up some ground in July. I'm also feeling a bit inspired when it comes to the things that I want to do on this channel, the things that I would like to read to make those videos happen on this channel. So all in all, even though we still are playing catch up with the overall goal for my reading challenge this year, I am looking forward to July. I have a couple of trips happening in July where I am planning on bringing some books with me and hoping to get some good reading done on those trips when I actually have a chance to relax and not really worry about work or anything else in my life that's stressing me out. And these are the books that I would like to focus on during those trips. So first off, I am still making my way through my Fourth Wing reread. I have not actually finished rereading the first book yet. I am still about halfway through Fourth Wing. I am very slowly moseying my way through that reread. I don't know if it's just because I didn't really connect with many of the characters in the first book. I definitely do remember liking the second one way more. So it could very well be that I just don't really care for a lot of the characters in the first book, and that's what's dragging for me. But I also think the work stuff does play into that as well. So I am still continuing with that reread, and I am hoping to finish Fourth Wing by the end of this month so that I can just focus on Iron Flame and Onyx Storm in July. So all that to say, that is going to be one of my rollovers from June to July. I don't know exactly what else I'm going to roll over from the stuff that I am midway through right now, just because as I'm speaking to you right now, there is still a couple days left in June, so I may get through a couple more books before this video actually goes up. And I know for a fact that I am not finishing the entire series of Fourth Wing in a matter of a few days. So that is for sure getting rolled over, and you'll probably hear me reference that more and talk more about that as the month goes on. Then the next book on my July TBR is Sad Cypress by Agatha Christie, and I just feel like it's been a minute since I picked up a Poirot mystery. This is number 22, I believe, of the Hercule Poirot detective novels. So I just picked up right where we left off. Well, actually, I didn't pick up right where I left off because technically the next book that I should be reading in this series is the Christmas one, but I think I would rather save the Christmas one for Christmas time since we are getting closer to Christmas. So I just skipped over the Hercule Poirot's Christmas or whatever it's called so that I can save that for the end of the year. But for the month of July, I really want to work Sad Cypress into my reading. I've mentioned before that Agatha Christie books are quite short. They're usually under like 300-ish pages. They're also usually under like 6 audiobook hours. So they're fairly easy to get through pretty quickly, and they are definitely books that I gravitate towards when I do need to catch up on my reading challenges, which is the case right now. So I want to be sure that I'm not making it harder on myself by only putting big books on my TBR, because the Fourth Wing books, they're not small. Like, I think they're all around 400 plus pages. So to balance that out and give myself a fighting chance of actually catching up in the month of July, I have to add some smaller books in there too. And Sad Cypress is one of the ones that I picked for that. And the description for Sad Cypress on Goodreads is: an elderly stroke victim dies without having arranged a will. Beautiful young Eleanor Carlyle stood serenely in the dock, accused of the murder of Mary Gerard, her rival in love. The evidence was damning. Only Eleanor had the motive, the opportunity, and the means to administer the fatal poison. Yet, inside the hostile courtroom, only one man still presumed Eleanor was innocent until proven guilty. Hercule Poirot was all that stood between Eleanor and the gallows. So it seems like in this book specifically, we are going to get a little bit more of the courtroom side of a Poirot case. Usually in the Poirot mysteries, we have the main bulk of the investigation, and then the story usually ends after Poirot does his big reveal, and then there's kind of like a where are they now kind of catch-up thing at the end, where you get the resolution to all the characters' stories after the conclusion of the mystery. In this one, it seems that we're going to jump into the court proceedings and maybe have a bit of Poirot fighting back against someone being wrongfully accused of murder. I don't really know, but the premise itself from that small description really did intrigue me. I definitely think that after you've read a few Agatha Christie books, you start to understand the formulaic way that they are all constructed. So I really enjoy when there are ones like this that kind of step out of that general Poirot formula. And don't get me wrong, I do still enjoy the classic Poirot locked room kind of mystery. It's still fun every time, but it is nice to have a book that kind of deviates away from that every once in a while. So I am very much looking forward to reading Sad Cypress in July. The next book that I have on my July TBR is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I put this on my TBR because, number one, it has been on my TBR for a very long time. I've joked before that this book has been like one of those fire extinguishers that's behind like the glass that says break in case of an emergency. This is like the book that I've been saving in case I have a reading slump. And not that I feel like I'm in a reading slump right now, but I am behind on my reading goals. Plus, I really wanted to put a summer romance on my TBR as well. I feel like one of the only things that makes me like summer a little bit more is reading a summer romance, because when you live in Texas, summer is not a fun time. Summer is the time where you step outside and you just immediately start sweating. You sit in your car and you burn your legs on the seat of the car, or you burn your hand on the seatbelt buckle or on the steering wheel. Everything is just hot all the time. And for someone like me who gets really cranky when they're hot, it is not an ideal time for me. So I feel like reading fun romances and stuff like that that have a summer theme kind of make me like summer just a little bit more. I know I talked last year about how I was using them to gaslight myself into liking summer, and though I still don't like summertime, like I still just really hate the heat altogether, it definitely did make it a little more enjoyable. And it's kind of like reading a Christmas story around Christmas time. It's just very seasonal, very topical, and it just feels like a good time to dive into a summer romance. Maybe I'll pick up some Emily Henry too, maybe some Christina Lauren books. Who knows where this book might take me, but I do know that I really love Abby Jimenez's writing, and I have read the other two books in the Part of Your World series, so this is the only one that I had left, and so it felt like a good choice for my summer romance desires. So the synopsis of Just for the Summer is: Justin has a curse, and thanks to a Reddit thread, it's now all over the internet. Every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up. While a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, they come up with a plan. They'll date each other and break up. Their curses will cancel each other's out and they will both go on to find the love of their lives. It's a bonkers idea, and it just might work. Emma hadn't planned that her next assignment as a traveling nurse would be in Minnesota, but she and her best friend agree that dating Justin is too good of an opportunity to pass up, especially when they get to rent an adorable cottage on a private island on Lake Minnetonka. It's supposed to be a quick fling just for the summer, but when Emma's toxic mother shows up and Justin has to assume guardianship of his 3 siblings, they're suddenly navigating a lot more than they expected, including catching real feelings for each other. What if this time fate has actually brought the perfect pair together? So it's a little reminiscent of the movie Good Luck Chuck, if anyone remembers that mid-2000s Dane Cook movie, only with twice the amount of people who have exes that go on to meet their soulmates immediately after breaking up. So I think overall it improves on the Good Luck Chuck concept. Maybe that's just me blindly believing in Abby Jimenez's ability to write a rom-com, but she is really funny. She is one of the only romance authors that has literally made me laugh out loud while reading a book. And I have enjoyed every single one of her books that I have read, so I'm hoping that Just for the Summer is just as good as all the rest of the ones that I've read. Then the next book that I have on my July TBR is actually a reread of a book that I have already read this year, and that is Riley Sager's The Only One Left. And the reason why I'm rereading this one in the same year, which I normally would not do, is because this is a book club pick for my work book club, and I do lead the meetings now. So even though I have read this book before, at this point, it's been 6 months since I finished it. So I really feel like I need to do a reread of it ahead of our July meeting so that I can lead an effective discussion about this book. I don't actually know if I'm going to count this for my reading challenge. I really like to not reread the same book in the same year. Like usually if I do a reread, it's at least a year after I've read the book initially. I do really want to reread this book. It did not take much convincing at all to convince me to reread it for the book club meeting. However, I don't know if I'm going to actually count me reading this book twice in a year. I don't know. I guess we'll see how desperate I get as the year goes on. If I'm really trying to pad out those numbers, I may go ahead and count it, to be honest, because I just hate not reaching my reading goals, especially if I did actually like literally read the book twice. Technically, it would still count because I did read the book twice. It just feels weird to just repeat reads in the year and count that as like part of my reading challenge, if that makes any sense at all. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll end up counting it anyways. I don't know. But I am going to reread it nonetheless. And I'm sure I will be back gushing about it again in the July wrap up. And a refresher for anyone that is new or anyone that just doesn't really know what The Only One Left is about. It is set in the 1980s and we follow a live-in nurse named Kit who is hired to care for a notorious elderly woman in this small Maine town named Lenora Hope. It is very reminiscent and I believe probably based on Lizzie Borden to some extent because there is a schoolyard rhyme about the crimes that Lenora allegedly committed. I believe it's something like at 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope, stabbed her father with a knife, took her mother's happy life. How does the rest of it go? It's like, it wasn't me, she said, but Lenora's the only one not dead. You get the vibe. So in 1929, at the Hope residence, a massacre took place where several people were murdered, and when the police arrived, Lenora Hope was the only one left alive. She was 17 at the time, and as the decades progressed and the local urban legends took hold, facts got altered and twisted as they're wont to do with urban legends. And by the time the 80s come around, Lenora is the local boogie woman. People are terrified of her. Teens try to sneak onto the Hope property and try to sneak up to the house, get a glimpse of her, all of that kind of stuff that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with because most small-ish towns have similar kinds of concepts where there is the local spooky house that teenagers try to sneak up to, or they dare each other to go inside, like that kind of thing. I know definitely where I grew up in Texas, there were several places like that. So for me personally, that experience made this book really fun because it kind of lets your imagination run with one of those urban legends and see it through to the end. So Kit arrives to care for Lenora, who is in her 70s, and after a series of strokes, she's basically mute and confined to her bed. She can only use one of her arms, and she can't really speak at all. Yeah, that's what mute means, Kristen. Like, I said the same thing twice. Anyways, so she really doesn't seem like the monster that people have made her out to be over the decades. Plus, she's in her 70s now, she's frail, and Kit doesn't really see her as a threat at all. Then Kit realizes that though she can't speak to Lenora, Lenora has an old typewriter in her room, and she can still use her one good hand to type out messages and communicate that way. As well as, you know, like tap once for yes, twice for no, that kind of thing. So they have a method of communication. And with the typewriter, Lenora tells Kit that she wants to tell her everything about what happened at Hope's End to her family in 1929. And that is where our story really takes off. So then we basically just follow Kit as she starts to untangle the story of what happened at Hope's End that sparked all of the urban legends that have grown since surrounding Lenora Hope and Hope's End itself. And I really enjoyed this book the first time that I read it. I am looking forward to reading it again just because I really like going back and rereading thrillers that I particularly enjoyed, especially if the twist wasn't obvious to me to begin with, because you have the knowledge of the way that the story ends to go back in a reread and put together pieces that you didn't really see before or make connections that weren't that obvious to you the first time that you read. I just think that you can always at least get 2 good reads out of a thriller, because the first time is the first time that you're reading it, you don't really know what's going on, and then the second time you know how everything plays out, so you kind of have more of a dramatic irony going into it as the reader, because you know the fate of everyone in the story. So you're really just going through the book with a new set of eyes, knowing who the good guys are, the bad guys are, who to trust, who not to trust, and all of the events that play out throughout the book. So I think it just makes it a different read, and it makes it fun to go back and revisit good thrillers like that. So I'm hoping that that's the experience that I have with this book. I'm fairly confident that it will be, and I really hope that everyone else in my book club likes it as much as I did. I always get anxious when I suggest books like this that I really enjoyed, because sometimes I'm afraid that I'm overhyping it and everyone's gonna hate it. But I think that this is a book that a lot of people in my book club will actually really enjoy. So I guess we'll see when our July meeting happens. And then my final book on my July TBR is another Riley Sager book. It is Survive the Night. This is a book that I have already borrowed from my library, but there's no way I'm gonna get through it before the end of June. So I'm just gonna preemptively roll it over to July, because I do have 21 days to finish it. So I'm hoping that I can get it done in those 21 days. This one definitely is not as highly rated as the only one left, but I do like Riley Sager's writing in general. I have really enjoyed pretty much all the books that he's put out, even the ones that are a bit more like supernatural in their premises and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed all of them, and I think it just comes down to I just like how Riley Sager writes, and I think that he does a great job with a thriller. Even if I see the twist coming in some of them, it's still a pretty fun ride. And there's never anything that's really like blatantly wrong or I guess stupid enough, in my opinion, to make me upset with the characters in the book. And at this point, I'm just basically going through all of the books that he's published, and this is one of the only ones that I haven't read from him. So the Goodreads description for Survive the Night is: Charlie Jordan is being driven across the country by a serial killer. Maybe. Behind the wheel is Josh Baxter, a stranger Charlie met by the college rideshare board, who also has a good reason for leaving university in the middle of term. On the road, they share stories, carefully avoiding the subject dominating the news: the campus killer, who's tied up and stabbed 3 students in the span of a year. He's just struck again. Traveling the lengthy journey between university and their final destination, Charlie begins to notice discrepancies in Josh's story. As she begins to plan her escape from the man she is becoming certain is the killer, she starts to suspect that Josh knows exactly what she's thinking, meaning that she could very well end up being his next victim. Just reading that description gives me chills, because it is like one of my like probably top fears, you know, being stuck in a car with someone who you don't know and then slowly coming to the realization that they might be very dangerous, that they might in fact be a murderer and you might be in danger yourself. I've never been in any position like this. My parents drilled into my head from a very young age, you know, stranger danger, don't get in a car with people you don't know, all of that stuff. But even so, as someone who has had a lifelong fascination with true crime, I've heard way too many stories just like this that go the wrong way. So I think that this is going to be a thriller that has the potential to really get to me, give me chills, freak me out, all of those things that I really like coming from a thriller. I really like to be genuinely scared for the characters in the book and feel freaked out, get chills, all of that stuff. That is like a requirement for me to give a thriller a 5-star rating. It has to make me feel like that at some point in the book. And I feel like this has the potential to do that. It's not super highly rated on Goodreads, but I mean, I don't really let that sway my ratings in any way. I feel the way I feel about books, and if I don't agree with what the masses are saying, that's fine. If I do agree, that's fine. I just feel the way I feel about the books that I read, and I'm never gonna shy away from that, really. So best believe I will be telling y'all exactly how this book makes me feel when I actually get around to reading it. So yeah, with that, that is pretty much it for my July TBR. Those are all 5 of the books/book series that I want to get through in the month of July, or at least get started on. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. Let me know. If you have any thrillers that make you feel the way that I described while talking about Survive the Night, go ahead and leave those down below. I feel like I'm in a bit of a dry spell with thrillers lately, so leave me some recommendations, because I gotta get through some books in the next few months, and the more recommendations I have to pull from, the better. But yeah, thank you guys once again so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Is this oh, that's a sweat mark. That's embarrassing. Everything is just hot all the time. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!